If you ask people, can they identify their top goals and priorities, and this is from the Harris poll, this is bang up to date, only 1 in 6 people say that they can do so. And if it's goals that we work on to achieve a given aim, and that's quite alarming, really. For the most part, I think people find the thought of goals as it kind of locks them in, it ties them in. So people don't naturally engage with enthusiasm, I think, to here's your goal, here's your target, here's your objective. But I think there are some things that can be done very easily and elegantly to maybe alter that. We've all heard about this. It's sort of day one of the management training course, but anyone just share what the acronyms for SMART goals?
Is it specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound?
It is fantastic. So this is supposed to be the panacea. This is rolled out, trotted out on every management course I've ever been on. This is the thing that will transform a line manager's goal creation and make them robust. And more specifically, the intention is make them so they're more defined and more likely to happen. What I'm going to say is sort of challenges conventional wisdom, because I don't think it works very well. And more importantly, I don't think it helps managers, mentors, or coaches to actually create a goal that works. And the reason is that you've got these 5 items there. There should also be an I at the end of it. So smarty is better than smart. And the I is inclusive. You'll never get commitment without involvement. So that's the reason for the smarty. But by the time you've added the I onto these goals, you've got 6 different things to remember when you're constructing them. And it's very much to the benefit of the person writing the goal and not to the person who's actually supposedly owning the goal. From being a learning and development manager for about 10 years in the largest drinks manufacturer in the UK, there was, real enthusiasm for this type of approach. We used to review goals all the time, part of people's performance reviews, and what you'd see is they'd have a SMART goal, and actually it'd be constructed in a smart way. So it was specific, it was measurable, achievable, realistic, time-bound, and hopefully inclusive. But by the time people had actually ticked that long, exhaustive list off, people were writing these goals that are about 5 or 6 lines minimum, and it was a long paragraph of basically rhetoric, and it pushes people away. So I've got a system, simpler way forward that will work every time for you. And more importantly, will give you something definite to discuss at each meeting that you have. Okay, so JFK trying to secure funding for the space race. And what he said was, I believe the nation should commit itself to achieving the goal before this decade is out, landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to Earth. And this is it. This is the example that we hold up and we'll print in our books of a SMART goal. But it's just not specific. Which man, which nation, which decade, which moon. So even the best practice doesn't hold up to scrutiny. The other thing to bear in mind as well is something that feels counterintuitive. Goal theory proves that this is the case. Not only is goal setting linked to performance, but, and significantly, difficult, really stretching goals consistently produce the best results and the biggest levels of effort. For example, and these are called GBOGs, but it's great big outrageous goals. And great big outrageous goals just shouldn't work, but the evidence is they do. Winston Churchill set himself a GBOG when he was 17 years of age. It's almost beggars belief that this actually was his goal, but he set his goal at the age of 17, and it was this, that he was going to be in command of the defences of London and occupy a really high position And one day it will come to him to save the capital and save the empire. And that's a 17-year-old boy. Now that's fine. All that's lovely to know. However, there is some more bad news. When you go back to the Harris poll, even having the goal isn't enough, because when you ask how many people can translate the goals into action, more people can't than can. So it's got to be understandable, and people have got to know how they can contribute towards it. And what I'm going to suggest is and introduce something called AMS. All you need to have the most robust goals is AMS. You don't need all the other bits. The goals that you create using this shouldn't be more than about 2 lines long at the most. There can be a handful of words, but they will work. So the A is you always start with an activity. Now, the reason for that's very clever. So you use a verb, you use a doing word. What's the activity? What's going to happen? The M is the measure and the S is the standard. And the reason is the A, the activity, is basically flagging up what needs to be done. There's instant ownership, and it's a verb, it's a doing word, so you'll know whether or not it's happened or not. The M, the measure, is how do you know it's been done? So what's the activity? How do you know it's been done? And then the S, the standard, is to what degree or what extent. So you can just shape it a little bit more. And that's all you need. As long as any goal has got an A, an M, and an S, it will potentially work, as long as you've got the commitment of that person sat in front of you. For example, verb words: you will create, you will design, you will produce, you will monitor, you will organize, you will represent, you will collate, you will introduce, you will increase. These are all words, doing words, that something happens as a result of them. Now, how can we relate this even more to your role? Someone in your mentee group wants to be known as the most purposeful and productive employee, and they know they're not at the moment. But wow, fantastic. What an aspirational goal. If this was my mentee, I would be so happy. And the reason is because we can now start to chop this up a little bit, and we can talk about what are the component parts for you of being purposeful and productive. What does a productive employee do? What do they look like? What does a purposeful person do? Well, they're focused. They are really effective in terms of sort of managing tasks and managing their personal performance. I.e., time management might come into that. They're resilient. They handle stress well. Now, straight away, we've got 4 big chunky themes there. For example, let's start with time management. Previously, what you might get when you're talking to someone about time management, the manager might say, well, actually, the supervisor does need to make better use of their time. And so you get these horrible goals that will appear on performance reviews. They will say things like, yeah, you need to be improving your time management. Where is the activity? Yeah, where is the measure? Where is the standard? And it's about what the line manager or what the mentor wants. It's not about the value for the person sat in front of you. So it needs to be improved. There has to be some sort of activity. So we'll transform this just to illustrate the value of this AMS approach. So activity, measure, and standard. What needs to be done? How do you know it's been done? To what degree? So someone's tried to improve this, asked why they need to better use of their time. It's because they're always sat in the office, and we need them communicating more. So in that case, line supervisors spend more time organising briefing of staff, less on day-to-day admin. Okay, you're kind of getting towards an activity now, but there's no measure and there's no standard. Then this becomes a bit clearer. Nick to conduct a 30-minute team briefing every Monday at 8 o'clock with defined action points recorded and shared. The activity is the team briefing. The measure, how do you know it's been done, is because it's weekly at a defined time, and there are action points and they're recorded and shared. So that's the standard that's expected. It's not complex, it doesn't have to be. And that's 15 words, something like that. And that is robust as you ever need to be. More importantly, it can be revisited and you know it's taking place and contributing just to one of those areas for that overarching goal. Any questions about that?
Well, I like it, Chris. It's good. It's kind of a little bit like an OGSM model.
Yes, yeah, it is actually, yeah.
So yeah, I like it. It's good. Makes sense.
Line managers really like it because they know the importance of goals, but most of us, and I include myself, if you haven't got some sort of framework or some sort of model other than SMART, because SMART is good for ticking whether or not all the elements are in there, but what it doesn't do is help people to construct goals. And so what a lot of managers do, they flounder. And they feel less confident, and it becomes a complicated process. If I'm talking to someone about a potential goal, or they say, well, how could you phrase that as a goal? All you have to do is think about, right, well, what's the doing word? What are you going to start with in terms of that verb? What needs to happen? How do you know it's going to be done? And are there any sort of aspects in terms of, what standard do you expect it to be, or, to what degree or what extent? And if you just pass that to the other person, they're creating their goals as well. So it becomes inclusive. And as we know, people will always commit themselves to a world that they help to create.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah,
Thanks very much.
That was good.
Cheers.
Cheers. Yeah.
Cheers.
Good seeing everyone.
Cheers, Chris.
Yeah.
Yeah, bye.
Bye.
Bye.